This is KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guests today are from the upcoming Riverside Theatre production of Circle Mirror Transformation. Angie Toomsen is director. Welcome back, Angie. Nice to see you.
Hello.
And Nina Swanson is a member of the cast. Nina, great to have you too.
Hello.
Thanks so much for being here, both of you. Who wants to start with the thumbnail summary of Circle Mirror Transformation?
Yeah. Circle Mirror Transformation is a work by Annie Baker. And I'll talk about her more in a minute. The play itself, like so many things she writes, is kind of an unlikely situation that you wouldn't expect to or necessarily even want to see in a play. That's and yet somehow
what's not to love?
No, that's the really curious and fascinating part about it, is because she makes you, she draws you in. So particularly with this play, there's 5 people in a community, a fictional town of Shirley, Vermont, who are all taking an adult acting class at a community center. And they're 5 people that you'd never expect to probably be in the same room together, excepting, of course, Nina's character, Marty, her husband, is taking the class. Even so, getting to know, the character of her husband, you wouldn't, as you get to know him, he probably was nudged to take the class. So even he is kind of an unlikely participant for the class. And the teacher takes them through a series of exercises over the 6 weeks they're together. And all of these things start to come up that none of them planned, and effectively they all kind of go through pretty major, almost either life-changing or planting the seeds to being life-changing transformation. A relationship forms and then disintegrates, and potentially another big relationship disintegrates because of this simple little community center class and these activities that she's taking them through. And so it's pretty profound because it's not something that you'd expect to see. A transformation in kind of the forms of theater and drama that we see are so overt. People know they know what they feel, and they share it very cogently, and their arguments are clear. Those are kind of the plays that we're used to seeing. But this play is all about what they're not saying, and it's very quiet and silent and contemplative, but at the same time there's this constant energy between these people that's truly fascinating. It's something that only Annie Baker, that in my experience, has really, she kind of invented this form in a way. It's very new and very, it feels like it's realism, but it's almost like this next step into a sort of hyper awkwardness becoming a new kind of naturalism. And have I made you not want to see it? I wondered how I was going to talk about this today. So,
well, you've given us a great analysis, but when I was reading about it, the thing is that we've all kind of had this experience. Whether you've taken a little acting class, but I was in a seminar not 2 weeks ago where they took us through, some icebreaker exercises that involved touching people.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
touching people I did not know very well.
Yes.
And the first thing, oh man, really? Do I have to get up and I have to take off my shoes?
Can't I just sit in the back and watch other people do it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is an experience that we've all had, and at the end of it, even as and the reason really is to make you uncomfortable, is to get you, out of your space a little bit.
Yeah.
So it sounds like she's taken that, as a playwright, she's using that to make her statement.
Yeah, and really, I mean, the experience that we've all had, because we've all been in acting classes, but everyone has felt loneliness, has felt trouble connecting, or not knowing kind of the contents of your heart, or being able to articulate them. And that's, I think, a very human and very current problem. And so I think that's something that everyone can relate to about Circle Mirror, and really all of her plays. She's got the flick where you're watching people cleaning up a movie theater. That, again, not something you'd expect to see in a theatrical setting, but it ends up being very profound just in terms of understanding and meditating on, this is kind of the human condition right now in our world, just in terms of connecting with one another.
Nina, tell me a little bit about your character.
Oh, my character is the teacher, and she is the one who wants to make people connect, but she doesn't realize that in the same place she's going to have to end up connecting to. So she thinks she understands how people work.
And she thinks she's just going to be the observer as stuff happens to other people.
Yeah, and she thinks it's all going to be hunky-dory and this is going to be great and everybody's going to love her and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of stuff comes up. People don't always love the teacher.
But her husband is also in the class.
Yes.
Right? Pick up that correctly?
Yes.
So that creates a whole different dynamic.
It's a whole different dynamic. And she's only taught kids before. So this is her first adult class. So a lot of the exercises I'm sure she's done with children before. And, of course, this is all totally new for the adults to have to do that. And so this is an eye-opener for her.
Now, of course, as you're all experienced actors in the show, so you've all been through all of these kind of exercises and kind of gotten over the nervousness of having to do these kinds, the uncomfortableness of having to violate other people's space and stuff.
Right.
Was it hard to get that feeling back?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, we did a lot of the exercises as ourselves first so that we could get that feeling. So that was very helpful. But if we hadn't done that, I think you're right. I think it would have been. I want to say something about how this play is for an actor. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Because it's so interesting. It has all the pauses and all the uhs and the ohs and the ums written in. But it doesn't. What it doesn't have, that leaves it very open to interpretation, as for the directors and the actors, is it doesn't have all those things that are usually in a script, like she says with dismay, or in a shocked way, or laughing, the crowd laughs. None of that is in there. So even though all the little ums and ohs are in there, the arc has to be found. And I'm sure every production you'd see would be, even though the words are the same, every production is going to be totally different because none of that is in there. It's like having a piece of music without dynamics, and you put your own dynamics in there. So for me, it's been a really interesting experience, and I'm sure that as we go on more and more in the rehearsal, it'll get more and more interesting, because it's all so dependent on what we can imagine and what we as actors can put into it. So it's really fun.
Yeah.
Angie, did that affect how you directed? I mean, it sounds in essence like you were needing to be very, very particular and kind of a stickler about the words, but the kind of the emotions behind them was really up to you and the cast.
Yeah, and the difference is Nina's saying, whether it's stage directions or just the dialogue itself, much of the theater that I think we all allowed, everything's really clear. Some things are subtextual, but ultimately everything's really clear. With this play, Nina's mentioning the pauses. Annie Baker has written those in so deliberately. She said, like, when it's a pause, it's 2 seconds. When it's a long pause, it's 5 seconds. When it's a silence, it's da da da. And in the dialogue itself, no one just says a sentence very clearly. There are very few of those. Most of them are broken. They're kind of clauses inserted. And what's interesting, I mean, just listening to me reviewing the tapes, you'll see, like, I've kind of redirected myself as I've been talking, or like started to say something and then changed and said something else. And excavating, assuming that everything there is planned and intentional, it's very deliberate on the part of the writer, which it is, has been a really interesting exercise. Yeah. Being able to trust that she's such a thorough writer. We know that if she's got a in there, or what I mean is going back and saying, well, what would you have said if you completed that statement? That's really fascinating work to do, and it ends up creating nuance that feels very much like people are just talking but it's so surgically kind of prescribed in the script that there's a structure that we can rely on, and
very firm structure, but also a lot of room for interpretation.
It's just very different than any other script I've worked with.
Yeah, and I got the opportunity to see the Flick in New York, which was very much as she intended, because she was working with Sam Gold, who's her collaborator director, and then also John was another piece there. And so I remember seeing those, and I hadn't really been exposed to her work before, and I was utterly fascinated. I'd never seen anything like that before. It's confusing. It asks an attentiveness of the audience and kind of a participation and an energy of the audience that a lot of theater does not, where everything's kind of broadcast and you can sit back and take it in. It's asking you to listen. And it's not a chore. It's actually, it ends up feeling like a privilege and ends up feeling really profound. That's my experience of seeing her work as she, intended it. And so that we're trying to really honor what she's done, but also this is our own production, as Nina said. So we're finding our own version of these characters, and that's a lot of fun and a joy.
And it sounds like it's going to be different every night, so you're going to have to come 3-4 times.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Find out what really happens.
Yes.
Buy those right now. Buy all those tickets.
It's like going to see the Grateful Dead. You got to go for the entire tour. The play is Circle Mirror Transformation, opening
the 19th, 20th. Oh my gosh.
20. I think it's the
wow.
20th. It's a week from
had
tonight.
Enough coffee. Yeah, a week from tonight. So that is the 20th.
Okay, and when do you close?
November 5th. And I remember that because it's my birthday.
Oh,
yeah.
Happy
so for my
birthday.
Present, I would like you all to come see.
Circle Mirror Transformation at Riverside Theatre. Tickets at riversidetheatre.org. And, it sounds like a fascinating play.
It is.
And
it really is.
So glad that you've had a good time putting it together, and good luck with the performances.
Thank you.
Thank you.